West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
The Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter.
That is what it sounds like when this normally sober, very quiet Attorney General Merrick Garland speaks out and explains in his clear words as we've been reporting what they're up to. And we're tracking this clash over what could very soon be the possible release of the search warrant for Trump's home. Garland made it clear he signed off. He also undercut the claims that somehow there was some federal malfeasance here. Indeed, in brief, formal tones that did not release any touchy details, he explained that basically, Donald Trump had already received extra deference, advance notice, and other avoidant techniques to try to resolve this without going in and taking the stuff. They even sent down very top officials from the government to explain to Trump's lawyers that it was vital that they turn over the state secrets that were now sitting in a citizen's home. So there's actually a much longer timeline here of events. And as with all of this, we're going to follow the facts, although I can give you a preview that Donald Trump's version of events really focus on Monday. As mentioned, he's the one publicizing the Monday search, and he's got a lot of people pushing misinformation about it. So part of that narrative is the idea that this all just popped up out of the blue. In fact, the reports both from DOJ and independent sources show that Trump was issued a subpoena about returning these documents in the spring. And it came after Trump had returned those 15 boxes of records to the archives that he was not supposed to have in the first place, which included classified material. In June, there was a visit on the 3rd to Mar-A-Lago where the chief counterintel official in the Justice Department went on site, arriving at Mar-a-Lago, discussing the boxes of government records. Trump was there reportedly, so he knew about this, which again is important that this wasn't all somehow kept from him in some bureaucratic miscommunication. He reportedly shook hands, and that part was normal. 5 days later, that official had a written communication with Trump's lawyer requesting the contents that the room, in that room, be better secured. By late June, the feds had issued the subpoena for surveillance footage, which the Trump team provided. And according to the articles that are coming out tracking this, that's as far as they could identify what happened. Then you have Monday's search. So what changed in that amount of time? Well, it is apparent that sometime between that set of conversations and attempts to get the material in June, something broke. Either there was evidence that Trump or his lawyers were lying in a manner that they could no longer be trusted, or there was some other development regarding what was still the possibly illegal possession of the documents. Now, we heard from former SDNY Chief David Kelly about how this all relates to possible criminal activity.
The question here is, there was conversation and interaction between the National Archives and the Trump camp. What did he say and what did he do? It may well be at the end of the day that this case is only about that. We want our documents back. They're important to the national security. We're taking them back. But it could also be a lot more than that. And it may well be because he lied about it or he did something, under the table, not wanting people to see, but what he was doing.
The level of public guessing here is understandable, and it's basically required because of the security rules around secrecy of the probe and the way Donald Trump is being so selective, as I discussed tonight with Neil Cacho. Donald Trump complaining, but not revealing anything about what they took out of his home, which makes you wonder, does even he know what they took would make him look really bad?
Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing.
Attorney General Garland today in his briefing about that search of Donald Trump and now laying out a choice for Trump and his lawyers to make about the unsealing of that material. I'm joined now by former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ari.
This was striking. I just went through some of the timeline, and I want to do that with you because it seems instructive. And we can show the search here. You see, I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to say bottom line, Renato, it took time. You have the return of some material, and then everything you see on the rest of that list is all of the time that it went through. And so, given that there's been so much talk about being a citizen and not above the law, I want to start with the most simple question to you, and then we can build. Is that okay?
Sure.
If a different citizen, just a human, had this kind of classified material at home and then was subpoenaed, would they get this much time and this much deference and treatment just before we even get to Monday?
No way. This is kid gloves, Ari. If I had 15 boxes or more of classified documents in my house, the FBI would be here to pick it up. They'd be beating down my doorstep. I wouldn't get a subpoena. I wouldn't get a request. I wouldn't get months of time to figure it out. It would be taken from me swiftly, period.
Yeah. And then my second question is also simple. Then we could get intricate. You ever heard of this expression, don't mistake my kindness for weakness?
Yeah, I sure have.
It's not a legal doctrine, but I wonder if that's a little bit of where Merrick Garland is. He is known for his sobriety, his reasonableness. That's part of why he first was discovered to many Americans, because he was this moderate judge picked by a president trying to find someone that Republicans had previously been on record saying they supported. We all remember that. Now he's the Attorney General. He's by far not the most, shall we say, aggressive style prosecutor that Biden could have picked. Andrew Weissman, a Mueller deputy, is very respected. I think he's known as independent, but his style's more aggressive. Biden picked this type of person. It seems to some degree that they thought over in Mar-a-Lago that they had one over on him. Does that fit into this? Were they wrong? What happened in your view after so much time, I should say, of deference?
Well, we saw there were some boxes that were turned over, and then there was an additional request, right? So that suggests that the government did not think they had everything. And then after that subpoena, of course, we then have a search warrant later, which suggests that they had some information that they still didn't have everything after a grand jury subpoena. And I think the message that Trump's team got was, because he's the former president, that they were going to treat him with kid gloves. They were going to give him special deference. And they were for a period of time. And they were doing it precisely for this moment, for the moment when Trump's team was going to cry foul and attack the FBI and attack the DOJ. And they could say, look, we bent over backwards for this guy. And it still was not enough. He absolutely was committed to not, following the law.
Take a listen to Garland today defending these federal officials.
Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked.
When you see people say, oh gosh, well, the Trump folks are dialing up the rhetoric. We also have that terrible report about an attack on an FBI office. We're going to have that in the program as well tonight, sadly. What do you say to people who think, oh gosh, well, maybe that'll press these guys as if they've never faced down gangsters or drug dealers and criminals?
I think that this is not, Donald Trump is not the biggest criminal that the Justice Department has faced. I think they've faced greater threats. I know I've had threats in my life when I was a federal prosecutor. I know many others in the Justice Department have. But I will say this. I do think that there had been talk about whether or not this Justice Department was not up to the task of challenging a modern day liar and spinster like Donald Trump. And I think today that they proved that they were able to put him on his heels. That's really something.
It is Friday, the 12th of August of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life, indeed. Okay, since I put myself in the bubble, because you can only take in so much stimulation before you say, I gotta do the show. We are awaiting, or it may have already occurred, the warrant will be unsealed. And of course, we know that Trump said, yeah, unseal it. Well, we also know that his lawyers told him, Merrick Garland can't say that there's nuclear secrets in there. That would be divulging state secrets, and he won't do that. He's a Boy Scout. He follows the rules, and we're going to use the rules against him. So they're going to go out there and dissemble and do a Bill Barr. They're going to summarize, they being Trump and his crew are going to summarize what is in the warrant. And he can continue to say anything bad there was planted. I saw it on the security camera. Well, you know what? The reason the reason you had the search warrant presented as such is because Garland saw who went into that supposed secure room that you put a padlock on. One of the complaints is that, yeah, he broke the padlock. Well, I guess it wasn't very secure then, was it? The FBI broke the padlock. You were told to make it more secure and you put a padlock on it. All right. So I've heard Orban and Putin mentioned in the same sentence. I've considered that possibility. We've also considered the involvement of MBS. I did not have nuclear secret relations with that bin Salman. And we've considered possibility of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. We've even considered Xi of China. I guess you could consider any number of world leaders. In fact, I suppose we should also consider Peter Thiel. Imagine what he could do with nuke secrets. Okay. So, I guess somebody's going to be held to account, and at the same time, what does the right wing do when they don't get their way? They just want to blow the whole thing up. Isn't that exactly how they are? God, eliminationists, indeed. I like that term. Eliminationists, indeed. Okay. On another just totally unrelated tangent, because that's what tangents are. What's up with NPR getting all on Beto for calling that biker Proud Boy motherfucker a motherfucker for laughing about kids getting liquefied from the inside by a weapon of war? Crass and vulgar. Yeah, it was crass and vulgar for that Proud Boy biker motherfucker to say that, to laugh. And you'll notice, and I've mentioned this on social media, so if you've seen it, I apologize, I'm repeating. If you'll notice, when that cracker mayor of Uvalde called Beto a sick son of a bitch, NPR didn't say shit. Not one word. That mayor shouldn't have used such crass and vulgar language in front of the children and the elderly. It's been pointed out, and it's been my experience too. I wouldn't have the language I have if it wasn't for the elderly. My God. This is America. Even Mark Twain talked about, hey, our invectives and pejoratives, that's all part of the language. It's music. All right. Sometimes it's music that's a little, grating, but it's music. It has a resonance. And we call it America. Motherfucker. NPR. Jeez. National Prude Registry, I guess. Oh, we have to elevate our intellect. Yeah, damn right. Elevate it. And accept the fact that coarse, vulgar language is part of the fabric of what it takes and makes to be an American. Okay. Am I on a high horse? Damn right. Selling nuke secrets or whatever secrets they are. Normally that would be a game changer for a lot of people, but not now. Why is that? Has it been decades and decades of questioning our government? Oh, if it's the government, it must be wrong. All right. We called it Russian active measures of the day, or active Russian measures, and we call it the same thing now. That's what we've been calling it. I just wish people would listen. Keep saying, I told you so, to the point where we had to trademark that phrase. I told you so. We told you so. Now if we can only collect royalties on it. Jeez. All right. Well, I guess we're not Peter Thiel. We don't know how to do it. We know how. We just won't do it. Please. Anyway. Yeah, we're the Joseph Salk of language. We just give it away. How's your Friday? You can just imagine what's going to happen over the weekend. I was looking forward to, a little respite on the weekends. And it's true. We have a lot more. We're often reminded of the daily low-grade sense of terror when that guy was in office. It was just like a hum. It's just, painful in a way, but just enough that maybe you could function. But you just felt it every single day. So it's nice to not have to think about it every single day. And once again, don't they on that side, they think being nice, following the rules, being a Boy Scout is a sign of weakness. Yeah, we'll show you Elliot Ness. The Gestapo. No, lady, it's not the Gestapo. It's Elliot Ness. Grow the F up. My God. They say the Gestapo and the KGB in the same sentence as if they're like the same thing. Because that's all they know. Oh, there's something bad. Liberals, they don't like that. Let's call them commie fascists. I love that. Well, I suppose if you have these two extremes, then it cancels out and it's nothing. That's really what they're saying. We are nothing. We don't have the human qualities to be able to be a part of this government by their value system. And yet we say, oh, you know what? You have an equal opinion to us. We believe in all that's good, and I guess we have to let you think that everything is bad. Do we have to allow that? No wonder they got rid of civics education and how to get along with your neighbor. Think about that. They fought against the idea of being good neighbors. You can't force me to be a good neighbor. We're not forcing you. We're just suggesting. But would you? Would you please be a good neighbor? You're forcing me. Yeah, well, wait until we force you. All right. Well, it's not Antifa that stole nuclear secrets. It's not Antifa trying to breach ballistic glass with a nail gun at an FBI office. Give me an effing break. That guy's going to be a martyr like Ashley Babbitt. Oh, they lured him in and killed him. It was all a false flag anyway. Wah, wah, wah. Look, the whole Republican Party is telling their minions to shoot FBI agents on sight. They want to defund the FBI and the Department of Justice because why? Trump got caught with nuclear secrets. There's never a bridge too far unless it's Hillary not sharing Podesta's risotto recipe. That was the bridge too far for them. Nuke secrets for sale? You guys are so partisan. Yeah, damn right we are. Okay, what's on the rest of the menu here today in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? A lawsuit by a municipal pension fund accuses Glenn Younkin of a profit and tax avoidance scheme. The Federal Trade Commission is looking at rules to corral tech firm data collection of you. And over $2 billion has been earmarked by the Transportation Department for local infrastructure, paving the way. See what I did there? For new bridges, roads, bike lanes, railways, and ports. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the European Union expressed concern that a new U.S. tax credit aimed at encouraging Americans to buy electric vehicles would break World Trade Organization rules. And London children have been offered the polio vaccine booster as the virus is found in the city's wastewater. Looks like the good old days are back, and that seems pretty damn bad. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and go ahead and chat. Kelly Lincoln, though she is quite busy, does monitor the chat room, so take advantage of that. And as another reminder, Kelly will be attending for the first time in 2 years in-person meetup at Netroots Nation 22 in Pittsburgh, so stay tuned for some great interviews and content coming from Kelly as she covers Netroots Nation 22 for Netroots Radio. If you would then look across the page from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll find the Patreon link, and if you could send us money, it would be really great. Thank you. And yes, and how you could do that is maybe if you became a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and sent us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance. If you could afford to send those funds to us once a month, it really helps. And thank you to those of you who have been doing so, because I got to tell you, it really helps. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. And thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary 10 minutes before showtime. And then you can find the links to the show notes and whatnot, because that's where the real reportage is. But you can find the general page in which those show notes and links can be found if I don't get the actual diary for that day linked up on Twitter, because sometimes I'm a little behind. And, of course, you can also find it when we put up the podcast, but I'll get to that in just a moment. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up those podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to mention it, the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library of going on 12 years. Yeah, I say that because we're closer to 12 years than when we just turned 11. Anyway, for well over 11 years, you can find our deep archive library at the Internet Archive at archive.org. All right. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life, is out of the Washington Post by Gregory S. Schneider. Governor Glenn Younkin, you all know him as, he's a Republican, is among several current and former executives of the private equity firm Carlyle Group. We all know them. Being accused by a municipal pension fund of taking millions in personal profits in a way that deprived income to shareholders and then shielded those executives from paying any taxes on the windfall. NBC financial reporter Gretchen Morganson first posted a story about the lawsuit yesterday morning, Thursday, after it was filed on August 3rd in Delaware by the Pittsburgh Comprehensive Municipal Pension Trust Fund. The 136-page suit alleges that Younkin received about $8.5 million of a $344 million payday engineered for a small group of top executives in 2019 and 2020 when he served as co-CEO. The executives were unjustly enriched at the expense of and to the detriment of Carlyle and its stockholders, according to the suit. The trust fund is a Carlyle shareholder investing retirement accounts for municipal employees such as firefighters and police officers. Now we know what they mean when they say, "Back the blue." Marcy Gordon of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Whether it's the fitness tracker on your wrist, the smart home appliances in your house, or the latest kids fad going viral in online videos, they all produce a trove of personal data for big tech companies. How that data is being used and protected has led to growing public concern and officials' outrage. And now, federal regulators are looking at drafting rules to crack down on what they call harmful commercial surveillance and lax data security. The Federal Trade Commission announced the initiative yesterday, Thursday, seeking public comment on the effects of companies' data collection and the potential benefit of new rules to protect consumers' privacy. The FTC defines commercial surveillance as, quote, the business of collecting, analyzing, and profiting from information about people, end quote. In Congress, bipartisan condemnation of the data power of Meta, the parent of Facebook and Instagram, Google, and other tech giants that have earned riches by aggregating consumer information used by online advertisers, has brought national data privacy legislation to its closest point ever to passage. Around the country, parents' concern has deepened over the impact of social media on children. Frances Haugen, a former Facebook data scientist, stunned Congress and the public last fall when she exposed internal company research showing apparent serious harm to some teens from Instagram. Those revelations were followed by senators grilling executives from YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat about what they are doing to ensure young users' safety in the wake of suicides and other harms to teens attributed by their parents to their usage of the platforms. As concerns rise, social media platforms from Snapchat to TikTok to Instagram are adding new features they say will make their services safer and more age-appropriate. Do you have a credit card? But the changes rarely address the algorithms pushing endless content that can drag anyone, not just teens, into harmful rabbit holes. And we see that with about 73 million maggot voters, and I'm not kidding. The Democratic members of the FTC said it's imperative for Congress to pass a new law, but that the agency was taking action in the meantime by issuing the notice of proposed rules. Mass surveillance has heightened the risks and stakes of data breaches, deception, manipulation, and other abuses, the FTC said. Agency officials noted that the FTC has brought hundreds of enforcement actions against companies over the last 2 decades for violations of privacy and data security. They included cases involving the sharing of health-related data with third parties, the collection and sharing of sensitive TV viewing data for targeted advertising, and failure to put in adequate security measures to protect sensitive data, such as Social Security numbers. However, the officials said the FTC's ability to deter illegal conduct is limited because it generally lacks authority to seek financial penalties for initial violations of law. That could change if the comprehensive privacy legislation were to clear Congress. Of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here on the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. U.S. transportation officials announced $2.2 billion for local infrastructure projects, paving the way for new bridges, roads, bike lanes, railways, and ports in scores of communities across the country. The competitive grants are more than double the amount awarded the previous year under the same program. The influx comes from a $1 trillion infrastructure law backed by President Joe Biden, which provided an additional $7.5 billion over 5 years for the grants. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said the projects would help modernize America's transportation systems. Buttigieg traveled to Arizona to highlight projects in Phoenix and Tucson, each of which are receiving the maximum $25 million. In Phoenix, the money will help build a new bike and pedestrian bridge over the Rio Salado, connecting the city's southern area with downtown. In Tucson, the money will revamp a prominent street and replace a 1960s-era vehicle bridge that is in poor condition. It also will add a separate bicycle and pedestrian bridge as part of what Mayor Regina Romero called a transformative investment in Tucson's infrastructure. A total of 166 projects across the country are getting a slice of the $2.2 billion. The funding marks a significant increase from the $983 million distributed among 90 projects in 2021. The allotment is the largest dating to 2009. Oh, who was president then? For a program that has undergone multiple names and emphasis changes during the presidential administrations of Barack Obama and that guy, Donald Trump. Though still substantial, the funding doesn't quite have the buying power as anticipated when the infrastructure legislation passed Congress last year. That's because inflation has driven up the cost of key transportation construction materials, such as steel plates for bridges and asphalt for paving roads. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, eating your own tail as an appetizer. In Vengeance, director, writer, and star B.J. Novak plays Ben Manalowitz, a New York Jewish writer who wants to get his big ideas about America into a big-time hit podcast. So, this Ben gets a call from the brother of one of the many women Ben hooks up with but barely remembers. She has OD'd. And believing that Ben was her serious boyfriend, the brother guilts him down to her small hometown in West Texas. Once there, Ben BS's his way through meeting her family and attending her funeral and hearing their wild theories about her murder. And in an act of selfishness painful to watch, Ben figures that their stories could be his story. Now, of course, we've seen this movie before. Local Hero, The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill but Came Down a Mountain, Doc Hollywood, etc. Jaded city person heads to the country where he/she at first looks down upon the local yokels, but while questing, they're surprised by the townfolk's self-awareness, and their homey values fill our protagonist's emptiness. It's a formula that makes darling movies, but you step back and you realize that they're all written and filmed by those kinds of jaded coastal city people. And their treatment of the just folks, though affectionate, is ultimately condescending, as our yokels' lives and stories, like those of so many marginalized groups, really are only important as far as they help the self-centered protagonists. And for a movie like Vengeance, which talks about our societal disassociation that's paired with our drive towards celebrity, both conditions facilitated by recording and communication technology, it's hard not to look to how the movie comments on itself, and thus hard not to find it disingenuous. I mean, what could be more all about you than writing, directing, and starring as someone who has to learn that it's not all about him? And though Vengeance knows this, can films like it ever ultimately escape being what they purport to revile? Here's your twist. I kind of think it does. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
In 2021, the Cancer Community Awards, sponsored by AstraZeneca, created a new award category, the Catalyst for Equity Award. This award celebrates those who strive to overcome disparities in cancer care to bring quality services to their patients. The organization Equal Hope won this first ever award for its work eradicating health disparities among Chicago women with breast cancer. As we prepared for this year's awards, we reconnected with Dr. Anne-Marie Murphy, the executive director of Equal Hope, to learn more about what's happened since her organization received the award. Well, Dr. Anne-Marie Murphy, I'm so excited for this opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
If you're explaining your organization to someone who is not in the health field, who hasn't encountered cancer, how do you explain what you do?
So Equal Hope was set up in 2008 after the publication of very disturbing data that showed that Black women in Chicago die of breast cancer at a rate higher than white women. But in other cities, in New York and San Francisco, there was almost no disparity in the death rate. So we were established as a citywide collaborative to address this disparity and to really dig deep into understanding our healthcare system, the quality of mammography and breast cancer treatment, and other barriers that women encounter to accessing the best breast cancer care, including the best screening, the best diagnostics, and the best treatment.
So tell me about the kind of success you've seen since you started.
African American women, when we started, died at a rate that was higher than white women. And we published a paper in 2017 that showed that death rate that the differential has dropped dramatically. Not zero, but dramatically reduced. Now, unfortunately, the pandemic has not been kind to people of color. We all know that disparities were significantly on display. And we're actually doing a project at the moment to look at what areas of the city have been most affected with women not going for screens during this time so that we can concentrate our efforts in those zip codes where women haven't returned for screening to encourage them to do that. So it's a very comprehensive approach that we've taken, but I think it's been extremely successful.
This is the first year that the Cancer Community Awards have included a Catalyst for Equity Award. So what has it meant to you to be the first group nominated and given this award?
We were very excited to receive this award, and it really helps us in our endeavor because it helps to encourage our partners. Many of our partners in the healthcare field, they went to a lot of trouble gathering data and sharing that data and being willing to actually give data to a project like ours. And so for them to, one, understand that the project has been very successful, and then two, to actually have an accolade for the project overall, I think is extremely encouraging. And it really helps us move forward and do more encouraged by this award.
How else has it impacted your work since you received it?
Well, I think it's always good to receive recognition for work. And so we've been able to tell more people about what we do. That certainly helps with people supporting our work financially, which of course we always need financial help like every other nonprofit. So that has been a major help in regards to shining the spotlight on our not-for-profit and showing that funding our work really does, in fact, make a difference.
Have you made any new contacts because of this award, met new people, formed any new partnerships?
So, interestingly, several of the other awardees we were actually already familiar with, so that was interesting and nice. We were already a very collaborative organization working with such a large number of not-for-profits here in Chicago. So I think the award maybe reassured partners that we were working hard and making progress.
You've done so much since the organization started, and now it's been a year since the award. What are you looking forward to in the year ahead? What gives you hope?
So I think when COVID struck, we really pivoted and we engaged in helping our community with emergency services. Now that we are emerging, at least to some extent, from COVID, we're looking forward to outreaching to our community members to encourage them to now come back into the healthcare system, to engage in cancer screenings, and do our best to avoid a large increase in late-stage cancers. We're also working on helping people get primary care. We've noticed over the last few years that many of our clients are not attached to a regular doctor, a primary care provider, and it's really important for all of their care that they have one. And so we're working on encouraging that. We're actually providing free visits at a whole variety of sites. And we're also working to understand the reasons why people are disconnected from the healthcare system.
If you were to give advice to other organizations, what would you say is a good way to address health disparities in cancer care?
The one thing I would like to stress in regards to working on health disparities is that it takes actually more than a village. It takes the whole city to work together on addressing health disparities. Health disparities are very complex, and therefore I encourage those that are thinking of engaging in health disparities work to think about citywide, community-wide projects and have them based on rigorous science so that your efforts are intentional and effective.
Great. Well, Dr. Anne-Marie Murphy, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Dr. Anne-Marie Murphy is the executive director of Equal Hope. In 2021, Equal Hope received the Catalyst for Equity Award from the Cancer Community Awards, part of the AstraZeneca Your Cancer program. Your Cancer brings together the community that is working to drive meaningful change in cancer care. Visit yourcancer.org to learn more about the C2 Award winners and the Your Cancer program. This podcast was produced by Scientific American Custom Media and made possible through the support of the AstraZeneca Your Cancer program.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
What happened in Kansas?
I'm Lily Ledbetter, and this is a Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
What happened in Kansas is that voters rejected a proposed change to the state constitution that, if passed, would have repealed the state constitutional right to an abortion. As you probably know, state constitutions can guarantee rights more fully than the federal, and the Kansas Constitution, that state's highest court has held, guarantees the right to an abortion. So, the Supreme Court's decision to overrule Roe v. Wade had no effect on the state constitutional right. That said, with the federal constitutional guarantee in the rearview mirror, anti-choice forces set out to amend Kansas's state constitution to abolish the right to abortion, which would in turn have empowered the legislature, if it so chose, to enact a total ban on abortion. That plan failed. Voters rejected the proposed prohibition of the right to an abortion by a really large margin, 59% to 41%, with an exceptionally large turnout. The vote in conservative Kansas surprised quite a few political pundits. Although many states are still barreling ahead with proposals to ban abortions, the vote in Kansas is encouraging to those who believe in individual choice, autonomy, and freedom
those who believe that women, and not politicians, not the government, should be making these deeply personal decisions.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1881. That was the day the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners passed their first constitution at a meeting in Chicago. The meeting was organized by Peter J. McGuire. McGuire grew up on the Lower East Side of New York City. He became a well-known labor speaker and is credited with helping to found the Labor Day holiday. Representatives from 11 cities answered McGuire's call and came to Chicago. For 4 days, they debated and discussed their vision for a new union. In the end, they completed a constitution and general structure. They nominated McGuire as their first general secretary. At its founding, the new union had just over 2,000 members. It grew slowly, not even reaching 6,000 by 1885. Yet the union leaders remained determined. McGuire logged 18-hour days traveling to different cities, speaking, writing, and promoting the union cause. Then, in 1886, came the nationwide push for the 8-hour workday. On May 1st, carpenters marched in the streets with fellow workers in major cities across the nation. By 1890, union membership had grown to more than 50,000. By the time of the Carpenters' Convention in 1914, held in Indianapolis, the union boasted more than 261,000 members. The union's general secretary addressed the convention that day by looking back on what had been accomplished. He said, "Our organization today is something to be proud of." They never imagined for a moment that they would have an organization such as we have and accomplish as much as we have accomplished. Today, the Brotherhood includes more than 500,000 members. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 60 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of only the mid to upper 80s. We'll see how that works out. Much cooler than what we have been experiencing recently. Sunny conditions throughout the day with winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the mid-50s. Winds will continue out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunny tomorrow with highs in the mid to upper 80s. Winds will have shifted, though, out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And it looks like we'll have temperatures in the upper 80s, low 90s over the weekend into Monday, and then inching up ever so precipitously, meaning, like happening, to the mid to upper 90s through next week. We'll see how that happens, too. It could be warmer. Confirmed cases of coronavirus were updated for yesterday. I'll just remind you of our totals. Confirmed cases now stand at 492,084 cases, and our deceased stands at 568. And the hospitals are still full, so we all need to take care, indeed. Grass pollen is rated as low outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 31 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is very high at level 8. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.06 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 84%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 88 degrees and sunny. Paris is 93 and sunny with a heat advisory. Rome is 89 degrees and partly cloudy with its heat advisory. Kyiv is 78 degrees and cloudy. Kabul is 74 and fair. Hong Kong is 78 and fair. Tokyo is 82 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 54 with showers in the vicinity. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees, partly cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore. And New York, New York is 78 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Associated Press staff bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. The European Union expressed concern that a new U.S. tax credit plan aimed at encouraging Americans to buy electric vehicles would discriminate against European producers and break World Trade Organization rules. Under the Inflation Reduction Act nearing final approval in the U.S. Congress, a tax credit of up to $7,500 U.S. could be granted to lower the cost of an electric vehicle. To qualify, the bill requires that electric vehicles should contain a battery built in North America with minerals mined or recycled on the continent. The EU is deeply concerned by this new potential transatlantic trade barrier. European Commission spokeswoman Miriam Garcia Ferrer said, "We think that is discriminatory, that it's discriminating against foreign producers in relation to U.S. producers." Really? Of course, this would mean that it would be incompatible with the WTO, she said. The Commission is the EU's executive branch, and part of its responsibilities is to conduct trade with the outside world on behalf of the bloc's 27 nations. The idea behind the U.S. requirement is to encourage domestic manufacturing and mining, build a robust battery supply chain in North America, and lessen the industry's dependence on overseas supply chains that could be subject to disruptions.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Richard Pannett of the Washington Post brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Britain will offer a polio booster vaccine dosed to children ages 1 to 9 in London after the polio virus was detected in wastewater in parts of the city. The UK Health Security Agency said that the vaccination program will start in areas where traces of the virus have been detected and immunization rates are low. The highly contagious virus can lead to total paralysis. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.